This is a video response to hoshnasi, and it's in reference to his video that I just watched about 9/11 and oh, the heck's it called? Anyway, the video is about how the nation in a time of tragedy really bands together, and hoshnasi compares and contrasts the differences between the events of September 11th, 2001 and current events, and how there tends to be legislation passed, at least that's what I gathered, there tends to be legislation passed and certain movements that are approved and everybody gets behind a coalition based on certain events. It's a good video. Y'all can check it out real quick. I'll put a link in the description bar if I can. But what I wanted to do, I wanted to get on there and respond to this, and I don't want to take any of the wind out of his sails or anything else, but I frankly don't like it when those emotionally charged events are a call to action and a spur to action, because the people that make it through law school and the people that somehow finagle and swindle and bribe their way into being millionaires and politicians, they're smart people. And anybody who's smart, or anybody who has any sort of a job that requires you to make decisions, one of the premium decisions that you face, or the premium things that you need to know about making a decision, is whenever you're upset or emotionally charged is not the time that you're going to make a decision based on logic and reason and really what is best for the situation. You're going to be thinking with your heart. You're going to be thinking with just a feel-good, warm and fuzzy thing. And it bothers the absolute shit out of me when politicians spur us to action after such events. Let's go back to 9/11 real quick. Interesting that the Patriot Act passed after 9/11, and the Patriot Act was written well before those events. It wasn't something that was just penned to meet that challenge. It was as if somebody all of a sudden saw an opportunity to do certain things. I hate to criticize the government. I wish I didn't have to, but the whole going into Iraq thing was something that we had wanted to do for a long time. I remember back in '91, your average everyday American was like, "Why don't we go and invade his ass?" You know? And finally we had a chance to do it. I mean, you had a president, standing president, George W. Bush, who said about Iraq, "They tried to kill my dad." I mean, that's messed up, dude. I mean, he was getting up there behind the podium. He was like, "We're going to smoke them out. You got till high noon to blah, blah, blah." You imagine that, man? At that level? It's like, I mean, respect for some of the stuff the man did, but at that level, to be like that, making decisions that affect the lives of millions of people now, a generation of Iraqis because you're upset? Pretty wild shit, man. Pretty wild shit. Now, with the gun legislation and whatever the president talked about in the State of the Union speech towards the end, and how now is the time, and all this other stuff, man, I'm thankful that certain legislation hasn't even made it out of committee yet, and I know a lot of my real close peers on here believe it's a waste of time to write your people, but I'm really going to recommend you go ahead and do it, and you stay on them, and just not. I gotta advise against posting a big form letter that you get from other people out here. I mean, granted, if you don't have a voice, and you don't think you can write, that's kind of one thing. But whenever you send a form letter, you tend to get a form letter back. I was talking with with digital out here, and he, just like me, we're both getting personal responses back from our officials. Some we agree with, some we don't. I think he's had a little bit better luck than I have as far as his representatives agreeing with him. I, on the other hand, have Bill Nelson, who, oddly enough, I voted for Bill Nelson. I think we were faced with a choice between Bill Nelson and Connie Mack. And my daughter, bless her heart, she's 8 years old. I let her pick, and she picked Bill Nelson, so it's her fault. All right. Anywho, interesting thing about Bill Nelson, really quick, is he is a hunter, an avid hunter, and there are articles if you search the internet about it. He's gone down. He goes down into the Everglades, and in the Everglades, there's this, believe it or not, an anaconda problem where people have released their pets into the wild from Miami and stuff, and now we have these huge ass snakes down there. So he goes down there to hunt, and he is sort of fallen for the coalition part of it of like, well, I'm a hunter and I don't believe we need a magazine capacity larger than 10 rounds. I'm of a mind that when you got a guy like that, this is a little bit off topic, but when you got a guy like that, you know, that's when you go ahead and you present those arguments about the arbitrary number of 10, you know, like why 10? Why not 5? Why 5? Why not 3? Why 3? Why not single shot? Why do we need to go hunting anyway? And just explain to him, as I've done in my letters, that I believe any legislation is a movement of a coalition to end firearms in the United States of America, and I clearly state that that is an affront and a challenge to the national defense of the United States. So anyway, it's interesting, and back to Sandy Hook. I mean, those events pulled on my heartstrings. They really did, and I hate to see it because kids are cool, and nobody likes to see them get hurt. But man, you get to a point where you can't really do something about it based on what's going to happen when a psychopath decides to do something, other than stopping his force with force in the moment. You cannot believe that you can somehow take away his multipliers and make things safer. Because when you take away the bad guy's force multipliers, inadvertently you take away the good guy's force multipliers. And that's a bad deal. Because when the bad guy starts thinking outside the box where the good guy doesn't even comprehend, you got trouble. You got trouble. And that's our argument. Anyway, I'm very proud of our United States representatives and congressmen that are standing their ground on certain issues, regardless of the reasons, that they agree with me at the moment is good enough for me. And anyway, to hoshnasi, very good video. I appreciate it, and I like your background. Whenever I see your background, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, I always think of hoshnasi as being like a booger in a nose, and he's like the bat in the cave if you see his background. Never Enough Ammo has the same background. It's a little something I call the booger background. It's when you want to appear to be like a little crusted up booger amidst a bunch of green boogers. But just as a health service advisory, if your snot is green like the backgrounds of some of these YouTubers, you're going to want to seek medical help because you may have a sinus infection, which could be a bad thing. Remember, Uncle Lamb Dog always says, having an infection that close to the brain ain't a good thing. Okay, we will see y'all later. Take care.